So our guest today is Derby-born English actor Jack O'Connell. And it's worth mentioning Derby-born because I do think you very rarely hear Derby accents on this show. And Jack O'Connell is a breath of fresh air in so many different ways. I enjoyed the film and I enjoyed talking to him. But what did you make of that? And what did you make of Bone Temple?
Well, as I told you when we did the Christmas show, I mean, I am a big fan of this. But so this is, it's the second installment in this section of the 28 years franchise. The previous 28 years later, which was directed by Danny Boyle, written by Alex Garland, was set amidst the kind of the pop culture rubble of a collapsed society, and it kind of opened with kids watching a video of Teletubbies, and then it ended with Alfie, who is the young kid who was gone to the mainland with his dad, meeting a gang of people who appear in a very extraordinary final sequence, which, as you said, when you came out of it, you couldn't talk to anyone about it because I hadn't seen it yet. And it was just like, what do I do with this? Who fight like Power Rangers and dress like Jimmy Savile, which is where this picks up. So, again, script by Alex Garland, directed by Nia DaCosta, who came on our show. She did the rebooted Candyman and the really smart Ibsen update, Hedda, which is a version of Hedda Gabler, which is a film I like very much. And Alfie is taken in by the Jimmies. And the Jimmies are a sort of Clockwork Orange-style gang of bizarrely attired thugs led by Jack O'Connell. And the word that he used was flamboyant Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal. And the first thing that happens is that to gain entry to the gang, he doesn't have any choice, is that Alfie, young Alfie, has to fight one of the Jimmies. And it's clear that the fight has to be, yes, only one of you is going to win this. So it's really, really brutal. Meanwhile, Dr. Kelson, who is the character played by Rafe Fiennes, has been searching for signs of human consciousness in the infected, particularly in the alpha male who we met before, Samson, played by Chilaris Parry, who he manages to sedate with he has darts which have sedatives in them, which make Samson quiet and passive. And then he will sit with him and he's longing for Samson to show some kind of awareness, which he appears to be doing. Maybe at some point he'll even speak. And as you said in that interview with Jack O'Connell, Danny Boyle had said that this film is about the nature of evil. This was shot back to back with the first film. And I read now that the next one has indeed been greenlit. And there's
a surprise.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, you said that at the beginning, didn't you? You said they know already that it's happening. But and that, as per Danny Boyle, will be about the nature of redemption. Well, the redemption hasn't happened yet. We are in the belly of the beast in this, okay? We are right in the heart of darkness. So the key thing is, whereas in the previous films, the scariest things were the creatures were the infected, now we are starting to see a more sympathetic side of them, which actually is something that if you're a zombie movie fan, and I know there's a whole question about infected and zombies, but it is the zombie movie genre. If you look at the George Romero Dead movies, there is this whole thing about starting to accept the zombies as more than just zombies. And of course, Shaun of the Dead, at the end of Shaun of the Dead, they sort of riff on that. They riff on that idea of the kind of civilized zombie, the civilizing aspect of it. So this time, the real horrors are man-made, and they are once again a sort of product of a rancid cocktail of destroyed pop culture and false religion. And the Jimmies, of course, take their name and their look from a real-life monster who, and we sort of arrived at this, we fumbled our way to it when we were talking about things before. In the timeline of the film, Jimmy Savile would never have been revealed as the monster that he was, because in the timeline of the film, at the point at which the outbreak happens, none of the revelations have happened, and then society collapses. And so there's a whole thing about culture just took a break, and now there's this alternate timeline. So again, as Jack O'Connell said, they are excelling. They are reveling in the apocalypse, particularly his Jimmy Crystal. Jack O'Connell said, of everyone, he's having the best time. They are thriving. They orchestrate fear. Horribly, the word that they use for what they do is charity. And the word charity has never seemed less charitable than here.
Yeah.
And at one point I was thinking there's a really harrowing film from a few years ago called Johnny Mad Dog, which is very different, set in the Franco-Liberian War, but peopled with child soldiers, children in fancy dress committing like appalling atrocities like fairy wings. And you were talking about the tiara, and there is that kind of, that real horror. And as with Alex in Clockwork Orange, Jimmy Crystal needs to maintain his place at the top of the pile. And part of this is this idea that he is the son of the devil. And, you know, which is very Manson clan, very Manson family. There's a lot of cult stuff going on in this. And you brought that up, I think, quite correctly with Jack O'Connell. I think that is one of the things that the film is about. It is about cult leadership and the lies involved in cult leadership. And then when one of the followers stumbles upon the bone temple that we met in the first film, the Memento Mori, created by the iodine orange Dr. Kelson, in that clip that we heard, there's the thing about, what, oh, you think I'm Satan because of the color of my skin and because of the bone temple. So, as with, and I mentioned Ken Russell's The Devils, talking about the previous film, this is to some extent a film about brainwashing. It is about the creation of a cult. It is about a cult leader who demands total subservience of his followers, who sort of know that he's a liar and a charlatan, but have bought into the lie, which I think seems weirdly contemporary at the moment. And all this then comes to a head in a scene which we've talked about a little bit, and it's been sort of, you know, trailered, in which Rafe Fiennes does a set piece which, if you remember Rafe Fiennes in A Bigger Splash, there's the thing when he does the Mick Jagger routine, the emotional rescue routine, and that was like the most enjoyable scene in the film. The scene here involving Iron Maiden and Rafe Fiennes is jaw-dropping. I mean, you genuinely go,
yeah,
wow. You know, I mean, you had the same feeling about it, right? It was pure cinema.
Yes, and I was glad it was there because it's also very funny.
Yes,
there are a number of points where you will laugh out loud, and I think partly it's because what you talked about, Jack O'Connell and Charity. This comes after a particularly grim sequence, which I found very difficult. If I did look away, a lot of Jack O'Connell stuff, I had to look away because it was so gut-churningly awful to watch. So then, coming to this bit was a bit of light relief, but it works. And Rafe Fiennes gives it 100%, and I think it's a brilliant sequence.
He goes for it. That the stuff that you're talking about wincing and looking away, the film is rated 18 for strong, gory, violent injury detail. And as we know nowadays, to get an 18 from the BBFC, you really have to go the length. The BBFC says that the film includes people who've been tied up and gagged, being flayed alive, stabbed, impaled, set on fire, heads ripped off, partially flayed characters seen in the aftermath. Strong, gory images throughout, including I mean, it's all there, right? No one's going to come out of this and saying, well, I thought they soft-pedaled it a little bit on the thing. But one of the things that's interesting is that an awful lot of the really horrible stuff is to do with implication. It's actually not to do with graphic viscera. It is to do with what you're imagining, and also the themes that the film is dealing with. Because, you know, yes, it is about evil, but it's also about two cultures moving in opposite directions, one of which seems to be going from rage-filled bestiality to something that's perhaps inflected with sympathy, and the other is this kind of cancerous sore of human avarice flourishing in this destroyed world, feeding upon the fact that people are desperately looking for something to believe in, no matter how vile. And what Jack O'Connell's character, Jimmy Crystal, Sir Lord, whatever it is, Jimmy Crystal, is giving them is exactly that. So I think it's a film about the nature of human evil, about the evil that men do, about somebody seeing a destroyed society and exploiting it. And I think that has a very, very clear contemporary political edge, particularly when you consider that the film is about cult leadership. It is about somebody taking on a religion, you know, it happens to be a satanic religion, but taking on a religion and claiming themselves to be the son of, well, not God, the son of Satan, and getting all their followers to believe in all this stuff, even though you know that central character doesn't really believe any of this, but he's just exploiting the chaos around him by sowing more chaos. And I thought the thing moved like a bullet. I thought everyone gave 110%. And I thought Jack O'Connell was terrific. I think Rafe Fiennes is terrific. I think the production design is great. Hilda Gudnadottir does the score, which is very brooding, and there's a lot of menace and there's a lot of evil in there. And at the end of it, I did think, okay, I'd like some redemption now.
Yes, which is exactly what part 3 is going to be about, obviously. And there's a hint of that at the end, but we'll have to reserve that maybe for future conversations. And thank you to Iron Maiden for allowing their track to get included. And interesting, and of course, you talk about contemporary. We should just say that the only difference being that here, the person who's painted orange is a good guy.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, the orange guy is a good guy. But I said this to you when we were talking at this Christmas show, I said my immediate short review was blimey, and my next bit of it was I can't wait for you to see it. And it sounds to me like it did hit you hard.
Yeah, I haven't seen an 18 for a while, and if I'd had longer with Jack, we would have talked about this. But I mean, I did the charity sequence that we're talking about. There's something about human on human cruelty, which is far, far worse than zombie on human cruelty.
Absolutely. And that's the point. That's the point.
Yeah.
That's the point.